Hi there, I'm Julian, father to Alfie, who as of today is exactly 7 months old. I'm currently based in Kuala Lumpur in Pahang, and I'm a digital marketing practitioner. If you're wondering what I'm doing here in the middle of the day at Rompin Beach, I'll get to that towards the end of the video. I've been invited by Tollyjoy Malaysia to speak about my experience helping my wife through pregnancy all the way to childbirth. Now, as a parent myself, I understand how challenging it is to even get 15 minutes of quiet time, so I'm not going to waste much time and I'm jumping straight into it. If you want to know more about my story and how I ended up here, I'll make sure to put up a link on the description so that you can check out my personal YouTube channel. Okay, my sharing is going to be split into 3 parts: planning, pregnancy, and postpartum. And because I'm a dad, so my language is going to be a little bit different. I'll be speaking to you as if you're a dad. In 2019, my wife and I decided it was time to start a family. And so we decided to plan for annual leaves way in advance. And this is especially because she is based in Keningau, Sabah, and I was based in Petaling Jaya in Selangor. As for me, I managed to negotiate a much more flexible working environment. We went for holidays in Indonesia in December and then to Taiwan in January 2020 together with the rest of my family. So we came back and then we of course celebrated Chinese New Year together. Managed to come back one last time in March, right before the lockdowns begin. We learned about the pregnancy in April, and that's when the journey began. But wait a minute, I can't talk about planning without talking about the first 1,000 days of life. Some people think that the first 1,000 days of life begins when the baby is born, but in reality, it's when the baby is conceived. Therefore, if you're planning for a baby, your wife should ideally be on folic acid supplements already. You can get them from the pharmacy or local health clinic. If you don't already know this, folic acid can help prevent major birth defects related to the brain and the spinal cord. Also, we have been trying for a baby for about 4 years already, but we weren't really serious about it because of our long-distance relationship. I think we got it right this time because we were both in the right frame of mind. We started tracking my wife's ovulation cycles together, and of course taking time off from work and going for vacation definitely helped reduce our stress levels. We can't really pinpoint which exactly made it work, but I think it takes a combination of factors. Part 2, pregnancy. Now, upon discovering that your wife is pregnant, I believe it's important to take probably like half a day off to accompany your wife to the nearest local government health clinic. And basically they'll issue your wife a book that will be used to track her progress throughout the pregnancy. The design and the look might change a little bit depending on state. For instance, in Sabah, we've got this, which is in white. In Pahang, it's pink, so they call it the pink book for easy references. But the information is roughly the same and the intention is of course the same. They'll run through a few tests with her to track her blood glucose levels, her iron levels, and things that are really important throughout the pregnancy period. And of course, if there are any issues, the doctor would know how to address it and the nurses will know how to escalate accordingly. Everyone's situation is different, so I can't speak for everyone else. I can only speak from my personal experience. We discovered that her blood iron levels were not at an optimal level. She's not in any way anemic yet, but we just want to keep it as best as possible. I love cooking, and for the past many months since her pregnancy, I'll be the one cooking and she'll be the one to help out with the laundry and the washing. This is mainly because I have eczema, so I can't touch soap that much. So I would help as much as I can as long as my condition allows me to. We kind of balance our roles quite well so that at least she is not overly burdened with a lot of house chores. So I personally believe that as fathers or as fathers-to-be, it's important for us to help out in our own ways to at least help to manage and minimize her stress levels, because it's actually important as well and it impacts her pregnancy and your baby as well. So the way I helped is that I switched and adapted my cooking. So I've really never cooked that much meat before. We kind of avoided cockles for a while because of, well, obviously the risk of food poisoning is ever so slightly there. But of course we don't overdo it. and we ate balanced meals throughout the entire journey. No special diet or anything. Basically, it's just quarter, half, suku separuh. If you've seen it on the television, then that's basically it. So portioning is always on point, and of course fruits as well. Nevertheless, the clinic also did their part. They prescribed her hematinics, which is basically iron pills. So we went on that for 2 to 3 months. It was within the first trimester going into the second trimester. It took a while, and finally her iron levels were at the optimum level. I could not be happier. So that's on nutrition. I believe both need to be aware of her current situation. So of course, not all of us would have the time or skill or maybe even passion to cook. Some of you might be out there still working despite the pandemic, but what you can do is when you're out there packing food home, you can begin to make more conscious choices about what she needs in order to have a safer, healthier pregnancy. So that's nutrition in general, but it also depends on the specific individual needs of your wife. So I believe the best choice is just to head to the clinic. They will know how to advise you. Consult a doctor, speak to them, listen to your nutritionist. In July, my wife managed to get a transfer from Geningau, Sabah back to at least in Peninsular Malaysia. Not to our hometown, but to Rompin, Pahang, and that's why I'm here now. Our initial plan is to head back to Banting, Selangor to do the delivery at Putrajaya Hospital. Not exactly that near, but at least it's the nearest hospital that we can get access to a specialist because this is her first child. But unfortunately, that didn't work out really well. It was a time when the pandemic actually hit Selangor really hard. A lot of our friends in Pahang and even in Selangor advised us to do the delivery here in Pahang because there were not many cases here at that time. So we decided, okay, the nearest hospital where we can get access to is actually Pekan Hospital, which is about 45 minutes to 50 minutes drive from here. In Rompin Hospital, we don't have a specialist base here because it is a district hospital. But in Pekan, they do have a specialist there. So one fine morning in December, my wife woke me up and said, well, it's time. So of course we head to the nearest hospital first, which is Rompin Hospital. And I was actually quite keen and ready to go after the ambulance, and I thought it would be quite cool. I had my tires and everything all prepped up. Upon reaching the hospital, they said that they'll monitor first and see what's the condition like, and then they'll decide whether they need to send her to Pekan Hospital or not. Then of course we settled down there, parked, registered and everything. So when the leak happened, since 5 a.m. throughout the entire day, they kept her at Rompin Hospital for monitoring. Towards 5 p.m, not much yet, but she was still feeling fine. She could still walk around, and they decided, okay, let's just keep her there to just monitor in case that there's any possible infection or any complications. So I went back home. She goes in, she goes to bed. 4 a.m, woke up to a message, and she told me that she would likely have to give birth here. So I got up, got prepared, brought some necessities such as baby's clothes and everything to the hospital, and passed it to the security guard on duty, and she would go into the ward and pass it to her. Just a quick note, because of the pandemic, fathers and even family members were not allowed into the ward. I believe it's also good because you want the other patients to have privacy, especially if it's a shared common area. So if there's anything that I need to give her, I'll need to pass it to the security guard, and then security guard will actually pass it to her. I reached the hospital at 5:45 a.m. and when I reached, the staff were actually preparing to get into the labor room already. And the security guard advised me to head back home and pray because really there isn't much that I can do over there. I was the only person in the waiting area. I can't get into the ward anyway. So I came back, performed my prayers in the morning, and head back to the hospital at 7 a.m. And that was when they told me that it was really smooth. We couldn't have hoped for a smoother delivery. Apparently it happened in like 10 to 15 minutes since she started pushing all the way until the whole process is basically done. So I reached there at 7 a.m. They brought the baby to me at 7:15 a.m. to do the adhan and basically to meet the baby for the first time. Once that's done, they brought him back in for further observation, and yep, that's basically it. So to prepare for delivery, you should have your bags packed and ready. In fact, in the morning, we just had to change our clothes and just do some last minute packing. But most of the stuff were already in the bag, from a couple of diapers, a few changes of clothes for my wife, changes of clothes even for me in case I need to put up a night at one of the hotels in Pekan. Initially that was the plan. We weren't really planning on doing it here. There are a list of things that you can actually find out online, some recommendations, so it's really up to you which ones to bring, which ones not to bring, and it depends on your situation as well, whether you need to travel or whether you can actually do it at a hospital that's just really near where you live. I think it's also important for us to respect and trust the doctors managing or handling our wife's case and not to give too much pressure on them. Remember that at this point in time, every doctor and every nurse, every medical frontliner would already be in tremendous stress and anxiety because of the pandemic. What I can say is that, at least for my wife's case, I'm glad that the doctor in Rombin Hospital is constantly updating my wife's situation to the specialist in Pekan Hospital. And so they decided that it's safe for her to deliver in Rombin Hospital. Part 3, postpartum. Now for the first 20 days, the nurses will actually come over to your house to check on your wife and the baby. It is also important to notify them in advance where you'll be doing the delivery, because they'll need to arrange the nurses from the clinic closest to your residence, where you're staying in. So initially we want to do it in Banting. That didn't really happen. If that were to happen, then we need to inform the clinic here, and then they will make the arrangements necessary. I don't know how that works, but you need to inform the clinic in which your wife is doing the follow-up checks. Within the next day, you need to get your wife and your baby to the nearest local health clinic, and your baby will be issued book, basically to keep track of his or her progress. So your wife will have one book and your baby will have his or her own book as well. So it's basically to keep track of your baby's vitals, growth and progress for the next 6 years. There are a whole bunch of information here that you can actually read up and understand more about your baby's growth and development. For instance, on the first month, what you should keep an eye out for. By the third month, your baby should be able to do certain stuff. So for instance, by 6 months old, your baby should be able to control or balance his or her head when you pull your baby up from lying position to seated position. And your baby should also be able to respond to sound. So these are part of the checklists that is in the book. It's a really handy guide that you can keep for 6 years. So at the back of the book, you can find the growth charts, and this is for both weight and height. So long story short, it is important to keep track of your baby's growth and height. It has a significant impact on your baby's health as he or she grows up. And basically, everything is in this guide. It's super helpful. So that's with the formal stuff. So for confinement, both of us decided to do it here. Our earlier plans to do it in Banting didn't really quite work out that well. Obviously, my wife needs to rest, and the 6-hour drive is definitely too much for her and the baby, and even for the driver, myself as well. So we managed to find a confinement lady through Mama Care, an organization which is registered with KPWKM. So there are a lot of packages, and we decided to go with the 1-week package first, and most importantly, that's for her to get massages and herbal baths. So for this confinement lady, she is quite well trained. There are proper training provided by that NGO, and she is also quite well versed about basic general nutrition. So basically plan meals together with her. So she will come over and cook whatever we have on the fridge, and we will plan one day in advance, okay, what's the meal for tomorrow, so that I can head out and grab the groceries that are needed. I will still cook for dinner, so the confinement lady would cook Malay meals, and for me, I would still prefer to stick with Chinese style cooking because personally, I just feel that it's more convenient and simpler. If you want to learn more about confinement, you can go ahead and read the tons of articles online and different kind of recipes. For us, having read through a lot of them, we just decided that we are going to go through with simple, clean, healthy, and balanced meals. In my personal opinion, the best confinement diet is a healthy, balanced diet. Simple as that. The only type of foods that we would avoid are those that have a tendency to get rancid really quickly if you don't cook it fresh. For instance, we avoided most seafood because of that, so definitely no cockles, no shellfish. Fish is definitely on our menu almost every day. Chicken is fine for us, whether it's grilled or air fried, if that's your preference. If you have an air fryer, 50% of your job is done. You just need to focus on other things. It's super simple. So that's not the entire story. I only cooked for 20 days. My wife wasn't in a great condition to actually help out with a lot of the chores at home. To make things worse, my eczema flared up. My hands were extremely inflamed and dry and scaly. So we decided that, to save ourselves from postpartum depression, which we felt was creeping in slowly, we decided to head back to our hometown in Banting and continue the rest of the confinement journey at my parents' home. I feel I'm really lucky because my mom is a modern, practical kind of person, and therefore the confinement meals, not really confinement meals, we stuck to what we know best to be the healthiest, whether it's steamed fish, stir-fried green vegetables. A lot of the ingredients that we use are those that, as they say, produces a lot of heat in the body, which we felt makes sense for this kind of situation. So whether it's a lot of root vegetables, whether it's carrots, whether it's adding a lot of garlic or ginger in it. And the best part is that these ingredients are actually quite common in Chinese and Malay cooking. So we didn't feel that we have to adjust that much, and it's not really rocket science if you think about it. Personally, I think we should just keep it simple. Suku-suku separuh. Done. So I took some time off from cooking in Banting, and my mother will be the one cooking. Within about 15 days, my hand's condition started to improve, and then I began helping my own mother to cook. Besides that, we also informed the clinic here that we are continuing the confinement in Banting. So we also did our monthly checks for the second month and the third month over in Banting. Towards the end of February, we decided to come back to Kuala Lumpur because my wife has to start working. So we came back approximately 2.5 weeks earlier. So that allowed us to self-quarantine at home, with the only person going out to purchase groceries is just me. That, I believe, sums up my entire journey so far. I'm definitely excited to provide Alfie with his first solid meals, from porridge to vegetable purees, a whole lot of other new things to learn. We couldn't have gotten it through without the help and support of a lot of people, from the public health experts and practitioners over at the clinic and the hospital, to my own parents and the confinement lady, and of course the community of parents who are always eager to share their knowledge and their personal experience. I myself have benefited a lot from parenting talks from all over the place, including from Tollyjoy, by the way. And if I haven't mentioned it before, I don't believe that there's ever going to be a time when we can say that we know everything about parenting already. There's always something new on the horizon. There are always going to be new challenges, from mobile phones, IT, from health, all the way to like the current pandemic that we have today. So we always have to adapt and improve. And if you're wondering why I started the video with me being on the beach, is basically to show you that I've been stuck here for the past 3 months or so because of the lockdowns, and I'm still actually working albeit remotely. All I need is a laptop and an internet connection. And basically to tell you how important it is to have a certain level of flexibility given to fathers so that we can help our wives through at least the first week or the first month of parenthood. And I think it's really important to support our wives as they are recovering from childbirth, and of course to constantly be alert on the progress of our baby throughout the first 20 to 30 days and then the few months after that. If you find this video helpful, then please feel free to share this with your friends and to fathers that you know of. Take care and stay safe.